Welcome back to the Well Played Cricket Podcast. We are episode 5 now. We're moving, we're cruising along, and yeah, I'm now able to do the episodes even though I'm away. So yes, I'm away again. We'll get into that in a little bit, but just right away, today's guest interview. What an interview! Like this was my favorite one for sure. I know I say that all the time. This is the favorite one. It's with Monali Patel, ex-women's player for Canada, now a master educator. Like I didn't give her enough props in the beginning. I'm like, I didn't know what to say, like teacher of cricket, but master educator. So that's a pretty big deal. That's a pretty big deal. And she came on and shared a lot of insight into women's cricket, a few controversial topics with transgenders in women's cricket as well, and then talked a little bit about the coaching levels that Canada has now taken on. So that'll be at the end of the episode. So if you want to tune into that, awesome. If you want to skip our part right now, you can go right to that. I wouldn't really suggest that because we got a few cool things to talk about here. But yeah, that's my little spiel. Doody, how are you? What's been going on in the cold tundra of Canada?
Cold tundra indeed. First of all, I just got to speak on Monali. Like, what a well-spoken person. Holy, like, when she
from
speaks.
Kenya. Us Kenyans were educated, but
Kenyans. But yeah, no, place is cold, rainy. Just trying to get these episodes. I actually went to the Raptors game last night, watched a really good game. The Raps beat up on Atlanta. Had a couple extra beverages that maybe shouldn't have had, but
do they have at the Raptors games, do they now have those cups that keep the drinks cold?
Yeah, they do. I saw that. They're also charging like $40 for one of those cups.
Okay. Maybe that's because when I go to Leaf games, I sit I sit like right in the front rows there. So maybe it's maybe we just get those deals. But no, like last time I was at the Leafs game, like my beer was staying cold in that like sort of metal gray cup.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I saw those.
Changing the game.
Pretty cool.
When you do charge $20 a drink, you should get a little special cup to keep your drinks cold. But that's nice. That's nice.
Yeah. So Shady, where are you? Tell the listeners, please.
So I'm in not so sunshine Florida. It was sunny for a few days. I'm here coaching a team, the Dallas All-Stars, in the U.S. Open. Weather was very Florida-like for the first 2 days, and then it has been absolutely pissing down with rain for the last two. So our team, we're into the quarterfinals. We're playing against one of the lower-end teams, so we would have won. And if it continues to rain, we'll move on to the semifinals because we finished third. And if it continues to rain from there, I really don't know what's happening. They talked about maybe adding in another reserve day. So potentially I could be here until Monday. And it's like been fun to obviously do like the work that I'm doing and coaching this team. And that's been great. We have a lot of international players and superstars in our team. We could get to that a little bit later if you're interested. Been able to catch up with Nitish, and there are two Canadian players that are in the tournament. One is our captain, Saad bin Zafar, and the other one is our vice captain. I think he's the vice captain, Harsh Thakur. Is he the vice captain?
Oh, nice. I don't know. Maybe.
Well, he should be because he's the future, and they're both good players. They've been doing really well. Man. So that's where I'm at, and it's just been raining like crazy. And when it rains in Florida, it's kind of boring. Like there's not really much to do, man. You can't go to the beach. You can't really go out as such. So I don't know. I might go to the gun range today.
Yeah, shooter man. Fun. Yeah, you're a shooter man.
I love the gun range. It's Texas or Florida. You come, you get to shoot anything you want. 9mm Glocks, shotguns, automatic, semi-automatic. So it's cool. It's a big part of the USA that I enjoy.
Nice. I've actually never shot a gun, so yeah, I wouldn't know. But
yeah, you look like the kind of guy who would try to shoot it with one hand sideways.
Like sideways, yeah, definitely. Blow out my shoulder.
Yeah, you would blow out your shoulder. It's no joke.
But yeah, Shady. No, what's going on with cricket in the world? Have you seen? Are you following the test match right now with Pakistan, Australia?
Yeah, I was watching last night. I was really rooting for David Warner. Like I don't know why he goes through so much sort of backlash about his career and stuff like that, and like you set this guy up for success. Like you got a really,
Yeah.
really mediocre Pakistan attack. You've got an absolute belter in Perth on day one of Australia cricket. Like day one of this test match, and when these test matches start every year, it's like the beginning of cricket in Australia
Yeah.
for their
This
summer.
summer.
So it's like everyone's tuning in. All the media stuff with Mitch Johnson and the other, people who are bashing him in the media and whatever. What a platform for this guy to just go and smash 100 David Warner style, and obviously set Australia up for success. And I thought his innings was exceptional, but I also thought Usman Khawaja was equally as awesome from a Test cricket perspective because he really played the Test cricket role, um, while David Warner just was continuing on his form from the World Cup, and then obviously looked like he was playing T20 cricket.
Honestly, like I feel like it's very strange that like your own ex teammate would come out and drop comments like that, especially to the media. Like once it gets out in the open, like what Mitchell Johnson said about him, like that's crazy. There's definitely some feelings still lost between them two, I guess. Who
Yeah,
knows?
yeah. But I think it's just Aussies being Aussies, to be honest. Like they're very
Yeah,
outspoken, they're very real.
for
Mitch
sure, for
Johnson,
sure.
Mitch Johnson is obviously has a platform now where whatever he says is going to be, open and out there. Then I think he's pretty comfortable with himself, and I think Davey's really comfortable with himself.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think it's going to be water under the bridge in no time as the cricket moves on because there's going to be so many more stories as well. And um, yeah, like I also want to credit Usman Khawaja who came out and just talked about how all human being lives are equal. I think that
Oh
he
yeah.
didn't really get into the political side, and nor do I at this point publicly. So I thought he was fantastic as well. Wore his black armband, and that was allowed by the ICC. And it's a tough time right now. Like we also talked about on our interview with Monali about the transgender stuff, and there's a lot of touchy subjects right now in the world of cricket, in the world of sport, and in the world in
In
general.
general, yeah.
And people seem to be really sort of treading in the right way, I guess, because you can easily get, you know, lambasted and by not saying the right thing. So you gotta tread really carefully. And listen, we're a cricket podcast. We're a very light sort of almost like X-rated, whatever you want to call it, podcast. So we don't talk about politics or anything like that. But I just wanted to say, like, I thought the way that Monali talked about the transgender stuff, the way that Kawadra talked about his message, I thought that was really cool. And then it's kind of on to the cricket, and I think we have a lot of cricket to look forward to. I know you're super excited and super happy about the decider for West Indies England.
My boy 40, my boy Matthew Ford. We
Not the
definitely
decider,
gotta,
sorry, the victory. Sorry, the victory of,
yeah.
of West Indies England T20.
16 years, and then the
Yeah,
T20s.
yeah,
Oh,
and then of course the series decider, which is India South Africa T20. So lots of cool
mm,
stuff, lots of cricket going on. Tell me
yeah.
about what you liked about the West Indies and how they went about their business, man.
Honestly, I'm just happy that West Indies are showing the world that how much talent is there, right? Like now they're getting their ducks in a line, they're getting things structured, they're getting proper, whatever it may be, and they're really putting forth the best team. Like I feel like this West Indies team that's playing England right now is one of their better T20 teams. Like going through the lineup, really who is not supposed to be there, right? Like a lot of times West Indies teams, not that they're not supposed to be there,
Yeah,
but we know that hey, there is a better player available, or they
yeah,
may be better specialist cricketers available.
yeah.
Right now, if I look at the West Indies team top to bottom, yeah, everyone's that's there is there,
I would
and
definitely agree on that, man.
10-1 odds right now. I was looking at Bet365 West Indies to win the World Cup, T20 World Cup. People take that bet. It's free money
That
because
is that is a that is a good bet.
West Indies are a tournament team, and they need to win 10 games in a row, which they're more than capable of,
Yeah,
especially
they're
with
buzzing.
yeah. And
I really like Shea Hope as a leader, man.
oh, what a guy! What a top
True,
cricketer!
true professional.
Just the way he
Arguably
carries
one of the
himself.
arguably the top batter in the world right now
Of course, I think ODI
with his
wise,
record.
no, like yeah, like a lot of times people talk about the big three: Kane Williamson, Virat Kohli, Steve Smith. I feel like Hope is also Babar Azam, big
I
four.
think
Sorry.
I think things are moving real quick. I don't think Kane Williamson, Steve Smith, Bubber, maybe yes or no. I think things are moving really quickly, and if you look at now, you can start talking about like recent performances and guys who are doing it, like the Travis Heads of the world. I mean, they got a
Hmm.
lot more to do, so I'm not going to start calling names because they don't have the top of my list. But Shea Hope is definitely there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, very excited about the cricket stuff. Um, I just, as we were recording this episode, India just put up 201 in the first inning, so that should be a good
Oh,
run chase by
nice.
South
They
Africa.
did, eh? Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can't wait to
201.
go back and watch that. See,
Yeah.
I give you my time. I give you listeners my time. Like I've been doing this interview. We just finished up with Monali, which was awesome. I thought, yeah, I would give her like 30 minutes and talk a little bit of women's cricket, whatever. But then we went. It's almost an hour.
Yeah, and listeners,
Um,
please
and like,
tune in.
trust me, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, trust me.
she is, she is a listen. But Shady, on my part, do you have any cool players you're working with right now? Like Coach's Corner, what's going on? Big coach?
Um, yeah, we have a sick team, and
Yeah.
it's a cool team to work with because Um, we have guys from England who play county cricket, who play in the 100 ball. We've got Jake Ball, who's England fast bowler. We have Chris Benjamin, Jake Lintott. Those are the English guys we have. And then from a West Indies perspective, we have Evan Lewis, we have Shannon Gabriel, we have Sheldon Salute Cottrell, Kerry Pierre,
Soldier.
Jesse Bhutan, yes. And then um, we have our sort of captain, who's interesting. Like our captain is the Afghanistan captain, Hashmatullah Shahidi,
Hmm.
who is an interesting guy. Um, very small, and he's very short and very small. But obviously, Afghanistan captain, obviously warrants a lot of respect and good guy. We have one Pakistani, Hussein Talat, who's a three-time PSL winner, twice with Islamabad, once with Lahore last year. He's a gun player, an absolute gun player. Never smiles. He's serious. And then we've got the locals. Like you want to call these guys locals. You're talking about Andre Scouse, one of the top um, domestic
Hmm.
players in the U.S. Major League, Obis Pinar, Lahiro Milanta, and I'm probably missing out even more guys, but we've got a really, really power pack team. And the coolest thing about me when I come and do these roles is like, it's my job in these little tournaments. Like, dude, I'm not telling these guys like how to play and what to do. You know, you're trying to create an environment that is very inclusive. You're trying to get these different cultures to buy into the simple goal of winning. These owners are putting up a lot of money. They try to bring these teams together. They bring guys from all over the place, and it's like, how quickly can you get these guys to gel together and buy into the overall team goal?
Hmm.
Some guys are not playing, some stars are not playing. These guys are all true professionals. It's a treat to work with these guys. Obviously, everybody wants to play, but then you're looking at balance of the team. And a lot of these other teams, like they are bringing in like 16, 17 guys in case of injury. Some guys are coming from T10. Some guys are coming from Legends. I forgot about, now that I said Legends, I forgot about the biggest legend that we have on our team, Ashley Nurse,
Mm.
former West Indies player, Bayesian. Um, like I thank God I spent a lot of time in the West Indies and have been around West Indies players, especially Bajans, because if you don't know like anything about how Bajans speak, you're not
Oh, you're
understanding
done. You're
a
cooked.
word, a
You're cooked.
word of
You're
Mr.
cooked.
Ashley Nurse. You are not understanding a thing. But I love him. He makes me laugh nonstop. He's a stats guy. He just does not stop talking about cricket and stats and all this stuff. So he was at the Legends tournament actually, and I'm gonna get him on. It's like I want to get him on, but not, he speaks English. Like he could obviously tone down the accent and get things going, but it would be hilarious to have him on because he was part of the Delhi or the what are they called, the Delhi Capitals Legends team
Hmm.
with Gautam Gambhir as the captain. So I got to hear a lot of the actual real stories around the Gautam Gambhir Kohli stuff, around the Gautam Gambhir Srisant stuff that happened, and
Wow.
what was actually said, and just how much of a G my boy Double G Gautam Gambhir is.
Wow.
So hopefully I could get Skins on, and he can tell us about the funny stories. He's kind of not the type of guy who will jump on a podcast, but let's see if I can work on him. So yeah,
Nice.
like I was saying, man, it's a cool job, man, to take on these roles because you're trying to bring these guys together, gel them together. You got to get them going in warm ups. You got to get everything sort of on a professional level. There's a lot of egos there. There's a lot of demands from these guys. But again, all true professionals and just like an absolute treat to work with these guys. So I love these roles. I love this tournament. It's played at the Broward County Stadium in Florida, where just the other day, man, all the ICC guys were there, like the camera
Mm.
crews, everything. They were doing measurements,
Mm.
everything, because you know what's coming, man. The
The World
T2024
Cup. Yeah.
T20 World Cup is coming to that stadium. Wickets look
Nice.
decent. So yeah, man, there's a lot going on over here in Florida and in the U.S. as always when it comes to cricket.
For Shady, amazing coaches corner, guys. That just listeners, boys, girls, whatever it may be, just plug into Shady. Like you guys have a resource in Toronto that is available. Like international, you hear it here first. International players are working with him, talking about him, just connecting with him. Just make sure you get out to his camp, like because I'm telling you right now, Shady. Once you leave Toronto and you're gone, everyone's gonna regret not having this camp that you have. So get
Hey
out
man,
there,
I'm
guys.
always, you know what? Like I've had so much positive feedback about the camp, and like even when I'm gone, it still runs. I have an amazing assistant coach in Danish Alani. There's consistent guys who go there. I get messages all the time like, "Hey, Shady, can I join your camp?" And I'm talking about some of the national guys, some of the top players, some of the young people. It's again, I always talk about it. I want to pump its tires because it's something I'm very passionate about. Um, we focus on obviously fitness and cricket. It's very inclusive. It's fun. There's music. It's very laid back in a way. Obviously, we're working hard, but it's like everyone feels like they're equal there. That's something that, for me as a coach, is so important, and it has everything to do with how I was kind of brought up in this cricket fraternity in Canada. Is like, you know, within the South Asian communities, like you're sometimes left on the outside, man. If you're not Indian, if you're not Pakistani, if you're not,
Mm-hmm.
part of this club, um, if you don't wear a dress like this, you know what I mean? Like, so anyway, it's very inclusive. So everyone feels like they're at home there. They can come and do their thing. And like, yeah, like you said, man, if you guys can reach out to me anytime. Um, as you hear in the interview, I also work with women's cricketers as well. They're, don't be afraid to reach out at any capacity. And I'm always here to help and hopefully point you in the right direction.
Awesome, awesome. Yo, Shady, you're doing great stuff, man. Anything else for me this week? Because this episode will be a little longer because of Manali's amazing interview. So, on my part, I'm okay. I have
Yeah, I
nothing
think
that
I'm
I
all
want to
right
touch on.
too. Well, I just wanted to touch on the PSL draft.
Mm.
So one of my good friends, we became really good friends since the GT20, Riza Hendricks, who is still smashing it for South Africa. You
Mm-hmm.
just said India made 201, so I really want to get off the call and go and watch him bat. My Willow cricket thing is working here, so there's no IPTV out here, unfortunately, on my phone. But my Willow cricket is there. I subscribe. I love it. So I want to go and watch him bat. But congratulations to him on getting picked up by I forgot who, but he got picked up for the PSL. He's a gun. Rassi Van der Dusen, Fucker Zaman, who I talked to the other day about potentially being able to go and work with the Lahore team. I'm not sure how that'll work out. But yeah, just congratulations to all the guys. Hussein Talat, who's in my team right now, is going back to Lahore as well. So yeah, just a quick thought on the PSL, which is a fantastic tournament. And as cricket continues to grow, on the next episode, I really want to dive into um, Major League Cricket and all the
Mm.
developments that are happening within Major League Cricket in the United States, and they are shocking. So,
Awesome.
listeners are going to want to tune in for the next one. Maybe I can get, or we'll get someone who's a little bit more in tune with the Major League who might want to talk about it, or I'll just spill the beans as I do usually. So, who knows who we're going to have as our next guest? But yeah, we got this thing running like a well-oiled machine. No more lags in the audio and the video.
Listeners,
My man
yeah,
Doody
bear
here.
with us.
Hey, listen,
Yeah,
we're
bear.
trying our best here. Like we're not fucking. We're doing this out of like we just want to get get some content going for the
Yeah,
listeners in
yeah,
cricket. We want to try to grow the game of cricket in Canada, and this is a platform that allows us to do that. So thank you guys so
yeah.
much for listening. And we're gonna jump into Monali Patel unless you have anything else, bud.
I'm good, man. I'm good. Listeners, please drop a comment, drop a like, drop some stars. Help the algorithm out,
Cool.
and just share. Like you said, we're just trying to build a community here with everything we're doing. And to be honest, we're trying to give a real opinion on just cricket.
Yeah,
So
simple as that.
enjoy, everyone.
Thanks, guys. All right, we're here with I'm going to say legendary Monali Patel. Legendary because former Canada captain, former Canada player, now doing some really, really cool things with coaching and coaching certifications, working with the ICC, commentary. Is there anything that you don't do, Monali? Mother,
Um, Mom,
like holding it down. Like, geez, like thank you so much for doing this. We're so excited to have you on. I have so many questions, as I'm sure everyone else does, but tell us sort of where you are now and what's happening with life at the moment.
life is busy. As you just mentioned, yeah, there's a little bit of everything going on. Cricket's taking up more and more time, which is good because ideally, if I could do it full time, it would be perfect. But we're finally moving things along within Cricket Canada and growing coaching and coaching pathways. Apart from that, our men's team's just qualified for the World Cup, so we're back in shape with that. And then on a personal level, I'm holding down the fort with two kids, which I must admit is my weakest point because I'm much better at the cricket side of things than I am all the other stuff.
I was almost gonna say three kids because your husband, a good friend of mine and former teammate Trevin, he just doesn't
Mr.
age. Like
Trevin.
he looks the same age. He looks like he's still under 19 playing with me in the World Cup. But no, he's a legend in my books, and obviously the TND's top scorer, and I only call him legend. I'm not sure how many else guys do, but no, he's a great guy, and I'm sure a great father as well. So nice little family you got there.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. And he's a better parent than I am. So he's
Are
good
you
at
the better
certain.
cricketer? Are you the better cricketer?
No, no, I wouldn't give myself that credit either. No,
Um,
it's been instrumental in my personal growth as well in terms of cricket because
Awesome.
I think when I started, and I started pretty late, I didn't start cricket until about 16, played a lot of other sports, and we started dating at 19. But there's so much more that I learned just from being around him. And that kind of expanded my whole knowledge of what the sport really is because it's not there's more to just going there and picking up a bat or a ball. There's so much more to it, and he was a big part of showing me that.
awesome,
Nice.
legend. Well, we won't talk much about him. We'll have to wait till we get him
Good,
on another
yeah.
time.
We can't
But
give him too much credit.
yeah,
Can't swell their
I
heads, right?
think for sure, and I think myself for sure, and our listeners want to know. Okay, so at 16, how did you get into cricket and why?
Yeah, should we transition? Sorry, Manali, should we transition to the background backyard?
Yes, sorry.
So we do a little segment, Manali, just background and backyard. Kind of like, what was your background in cricket? How'd you get into it? And what did backyard cricket look like? So take the
Sure.
mic.
So I didn't grow up playing the sport at all. I was born and raised in Kenya. Played a lot of soccer, did a lot of track and field. And then about grade 10 is when I realized that my genetics can't keep up with some of the other genetics in terms of 100 and 200 meters. So then I transitioned to racket sports. And it wasn't until 15, 16 that we were going to drop my brother off at practice. And I was on the internet and I came across an article on the BBC about Claire Taylor and Charlotte Edwards. And I was like, oh my God, there's a whole world out there. But I'd actually hated this sport because growing up in Kenya, yes, I was athletic and I wanted to play anything I could. But I had one of my classmates, a boy, tell me, oh, cricket's not for girls. And at that point, I hated it. I'm like, well, any sport that's not for girls isn't good enough for me, whatever. But then after discovering that article, I was like, well, I've never given it any thought. And that's where it all started. So we joined Transac, actually, um, full club of West Indian players. total riot to be around. So much fun, and they were so supportive as well. And then a few years down, I'm doing all this. I didn't think I'd ever, be coaching or facilitating or being a master educator. It's just kind of led from one thing to the next, and I'm hoping that eventually this is going to end up becoming a full-time thing.
Awesome, awesome.
I
And what
think
did
you're.
background? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
And what did backyard cricket look like for you growing up? You and your brothers, I guess.
Yeah, so my brother, he's 6 years younger, and so in Kenya, you'd have like a little center area, and all the houses would be around because everything was a little more enclosed, and we'd play cricket um, in that little space. And I, to this day, remember there were some windows smashed and some unhappy neighbors. And my parents were like, "Oh, don't worry, we'll fix the windows. Don't worry about your windows." And we had so the place that my mom worked, they had this carpentry section, and she'd gotten two bats made for us, and a neighbor of mine sat on mine and broke it. And this is like, I had no real love for this sport, but I still remember to this day she had broken this bat, and I was in tears. I was like, "You broke my bat!" It was always there. It was hidden, but yeah, lots of fun. It's small space, but we definitely played a lot of fun games.
Nice.
So when is it that you sort of moved out to Canada, and how soon were you sort of in the Canadian cricket mix?
So 2001 is when we moved to Canada. And what year would it have been? 2005? No, that doesn't make sense.
2005.
2009. Close.
I have your ICC stuff here.
Yeah, about
2013.
2005.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sorry, what was your question?
No, I have your ICC stuff for Canada here. It was 2013, I believe, that you started playing for Canada, but transact
Yeah,
time would be 2005.
about. I would say closer to, maybe closer to 2007 is when I was actually really into it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I never knew you were
I'm
from
not very
Kenya,
good with my
Manali.
years.
I'm also a fellow Kenyan, as you know, and now that I know you're from there, I've actually gonna pump your tires a little bit more. So I never knew about that. Um, and when you sort of were going through the whole Transact system and you started playing cricket, was that like sort of you playing with the men because there wasn't any
Yeah.
women's sort of setup in Canada at that time? What was that like?
Yeah, it was I was the only girl in the club at the time. We were playing TND, so I played at that time third division was the lowest, so I started playing third division. And a part of me is like, yeah, it's nice to have women's cricket on its own, but what really helped me was to be thrown right into the men's cricket mix. I would not have learned what I learned and as quickly as I did if it wasn't for being thrown into that setup. Because I had two options. It was either a matter of learning quick or going home injured. And, you have to weigh your options. And as as much as I would urge, yeah, we need to grow the women's game as a solitary thing in Canada, I also would urge girls to take up a club or a sport, whatever, wherever they feel comfortable, and join a men's team or a junior boys team because you will learn and improve so much faster.
And then that's no
And
different. That's no different than like other sports, hockey. I remember playing
yeah,
hockey when I
Yeah.
was young, and there was girls playing, and like if you're
yeah,
engulfed in a more competitive environment, you're only gonna either sink or swim, right? And I think that's
yeah,
that's sort of where you're heading with that is that it
yeah,
gave you the opportunity to be challenged and then kind of forced you into having to sort of swim and get better at your skills. And I think that's a huge one where, especially when you're young, I think co-ed sports are massive when you're young. And now that there's obviously a huge platform with women's cricket, which we'll dive into next, I still think there's a lot of value in that. And I still think there should be and should be a lot of co-ed sports going on.
yeah, absolutely. And you know what? A big part of that is also having the support of your teammates. And I
Mm.
was lucky in that sense. I had really good teammates, and they were very supportive. And even when I got into the Canadian fold, it was the 1 year that the men's and the women's fitness sessions were coinciding, and that's where I met Trevin. But Pupita was very welcoming, and he said, if you do want to come out to the men's practices, you're more than welcome to. And just having that opportunity, you you don't realize how much it accelerates your learning and how much it accelerates your understanding of the sport. And I was lucky with all of that. I was lucky to have that opportunity. And I can't urge it enough for some of the girls coming up right now. If you're getting the opportunity, take it. And to the guys who might be exposed to having a female in their setup, please be welcoming. And it's not that sometimes we don't want the special treatment. We just want to be part of the team and get treated as one of the teammates. So that's all it is. Getting treated as an equal and as a teammate. It's more than you can ask for.
Well, I think that translates through like big time. Like you're obviously one of the first to do it in Canada, so you're a legend in that regard. And I've got one of the women's players, Kainat, who comes to my academy and really sets the tone with how she goes about her business from a fitness standpoint, and then also in the nets. Like there was an incident, a few weeks ago where she got hit like right in the ribs, and there was sort of that sort of look around from everybody and that real sense of whatever, and guys started to slow down with their bowling, and I said, hey, like, you're not doing that here. And she certainly would not want that. A ball to the ribs is the same ball to the ribs for you or for her as it is for me. So it's like, it's a tough sport. You're going to get hit in the ribs, and she loves it. And I think, more of our female cricketers need to kind of maybe break out of that shell. And it's not just the female cricketers. There's a lot of young cricketers who are so worried about, being judged for not being, the best, right? Like they're super cool in school and they got swag outside and they have a cool job. But when it comes to sport, they're really afraid to sort of break out of their shell because they don't want to look bad in front of others. And I think, in our culture as well, I'm not just talking about men's and women's, but I'm talking about our culture being predominantly South Asian. I think that's huge. When it comes to things like fear of judgment or that whole sort of judgmental society that we almost pigeonhole ourselves into. Is that something that you find the same within women's cricket? Like, not just so now, you have all the women's players playing together. Do you still find that sort of, players are timid, they're afraid to sort of break out of the shell and be a little bit more aggressive?
Oh my gosh, Shady, you're gonna get me some haters.
No.
Haters aren't bad.
Hey, listen, I've got enough for you, so don't worry. Join the club. But it's real, right? We're being real.
No, it is, and I'm a tough love type of person, and especially when it comes to sports, we need to understand that, we play sports with our bodies, and there's some element of emotion involved in that, but we need to realize that sports are meant to make us tough, and they're meant to challenge us. That's why we're involved in this sport. And my biggest issue with women's cricket in Canada right now and some of the players is we've kind of picked up we've taken the onus on to be activists for the sport and for women, which is great. We do need to stand up for ourselves, but at the same time, we're not willing to put in the work, and we're expecting to get everything given to us. Yeah. And that doesn't work, because in a sport, if you can't do what you need to do as an athlete outside of where you're going to come and represent, then you haven't done your job as a player. I have this whole cultural thing as well where, they're saying, well, we don't want to play with the guys. We just want to play women's cricket. And I'm like, well, let's look around right now. What is actually challenging you in women's cricket? You're only going to get better if you play against better competition. If you're not playing against better competition, you're not getting any better. And we don't have that level right now where you can say, let's just rely on the few women that play cricket will play against each other and then somehow expect to go and compete, in the Americas or in the global qualifiers. It's not going to happen. And the sooner people realize that, the better it's going to be for them. I mean, we can't We recently lost to the US in Los Angeles at the Americas qualifiers. And it's no surprise there because you see the US team. These are girls who are all in their teens. They just had three senior players, a squad full of teenagers. And these girls are playing in academies. They're playing in boys' academies. They're training 5 days a week. You know, you see them on the field and they're athletes. They carry themselves as athletes. Some of them are multi-sport athletes where they've come in and, you know, they're still playing competitive gymnastics, they're playing competitive cricket. That's the level that we're trying to compete with. We don't have that level in Canada, and the only way we're going to get that level is if we're going to be comfortable with experiencing the uncomfortable. That's the bottom line.
Well said. Well said.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
Yep. I actually work with a few of the U.S. women's players, so like I'm always looked at as this guy. But you know what? They reach out to me. You know, I program for a few of the women's national players. One is an outright teenager. Started with her at 16. Her name's Jessica. Aussie Sri Lankan girl who
Kamua.
Kamua, yeah.
Yeah.
Who really puts in the work. Like trains, like I think lives in Atlanta, trains with Ricardo Powell and his academy with the guys. Sort of goes through my training programs, and it's literally every 3 months where she's looking for a new program. She's looking to be challenged more, sends reports. And I think U.S. cricket and where they are from a women's perspective, also from an academy perspective, even going with junior cricket and some of that, they're way ahead of us in terms of where cricket's at now. And I hope that, to be honest, I hope like people like you are able to get more involved in the women's game. That's going to be my next question, because I'm not sure where you're at in terms of, are you involved with the Canadian women's setup? Is there any openings for that? Is it something that you've just chosen not to do because you may be frustrated with the way that things are? Talk to us a little bit about sort of how that is working now.
Tough questions, Shady. Tough questions. So, I was the women's development officer a few years ago with Cricket Canada. So it was a 1-year contract. We managed to get a lot of progress in Alberta, started a women's league there, made zero progress in Ontario. There are some polarizing issues, unfortunately, that are out of my hands, and they're, you know, political issues that, again, are out of my hands. And as you mentioned it, so the U.S. is ahead in their women's program, but one of the biggest reasons is they've had a really good coach in Julia Price, right? They've had Julia Price in that program for a few years. She's no longer the coach, but they just recently had Charlotte Dickinson. So they've been exposed to consistently good coaching, and not just good coaching for the national squad, but what they've done is they've helped implement a pathway. We haven't been exposed to that in Canada, and unfortunately, I don't really know when we're going to see this. I have no say or involvement in the women's program at the moment. My only involvement within Cricket Canada is a coaching pathway with the level 1s and the level 2s. And the level 1s, you know, are through Cricket Canada, the level 2s are with the ICC. But ideally, yes, I would love to be involved in the women's program, whether it's, you know, starting provincially with Ontario, ideally at a more national level, to try and standardize everything and to really turn it into a high performance program. Because right now, you know, we could slap the words high performance on anything, and which happens a lot.
We do.
It's a catchphrase.
We do in Canada.
I think it's abused.
It's a huge catchphrase. And I'm like, well,
Absolutely.
the reality is you don't know what a high performance program looks like. A, you don't have a high performance coach involved to be calling yourself a high performance program. And B, you know, going to the nets and hitting the nets to bat and bowl is not a high performance program. That's the bottom line. But creating that awareness and, you know, getting it out there it's a challenge.
It's a challenge. Yeah.
I think you mentioned it pretty well with the standardization. Like, once you get in at that level and make everything a standard, like this has to be done, this has to be done, this has to be done, those things are set in place. I think it'll see real growth, actually, because now people are now held accountable, right? Did you go through this program? Did you go? And I think we're lacking the accountability on all levels.
Yeah, and you know,
no, go ahead.
And to that point, what I would ideally like to see with all the level ones and the level twos is try and create a coaching database across the country,
Mm-hmm.
because right now Cricket Canada doesn't have a coaches database. So we've got all these academies everywhere, but there's no real tracking of who's coaching where, what their certifications are, what their qualifications are. So I think it would help to standardize at some level and know who your top coaches are, where they're positioned, especially if we're looking at a proper pathway for coaches. Sure, we need one for players, but the same thing we need for coaches. If we don't have the right coaches at your provincial level, then it all falls apart. Sure, you've got your academies, and you select your handful of players. They come to the provincial setup. But if you don't have the right coaches at your provincial setup, especially for your juniors, then what are you expecting for your senior players to get out of it? Like, these are your pathway players.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I've seen in the last 2 years, two separate sort of women's programs leading into some of those really important tournaments. One where they had Rizwan Chima step in as a women's coach and really take that job with pride. And I give him credit for that all the time. When I see him, I think he really wanted to get involved with Cricket Canada, and had to sort of pay his dues. And like, I guess I have my own feelings about that, about a guy like that having to pay his dues in that sort of forum, but that's for another time. And then the second time was just recent, where they had this next qualifier where, I'm a member of Toronto Cricket Club. I'm there. I'm having breakfast or lunch there, and I see these jovial bunch of women and girls, and they have a coach who's the coach of the cricket club as well, a new guy, Prashant, who, they brought in a guy named Jay as well, and there was such what looked like a really promising setup there, a really promising program where you had encouragement from the coaches, and you had a jovial bunch of girls who really bought into the fact that, hey, we can go and do something in LA, and we can go and win something in LA, and had a really good program leading up to it. I mean, it was summertime, so it's a lot easier to organize outside and do that. And then they got smashed against the USA, came back, and there's just nothing. And
Yeah, but that's there are two pieces to that, right? What you saw was a snapshot of like 2 months of training, a 2-month program
yeah,
before a tournament.
which is nothing.
So back in which is not really a program. Back in the day when we did make it to the global qualifiers, it was a very different program. We were consistently training all year round. George Codrington was the coach back then.
Yeah,
So
Georgie.
we were training all year round. We were training at least 2 to 3 times in the nets, and then we had partnered with SPC back then.
Yeah.
So we were going to the SPC for our fitness. But that was an actual functioning program.
That was
It
a high
didn't
performance program.
stop. It just continued. Exactly. And now what we have is we're going to have one nationals or one provincials leading into a nationals, and then there's nothing else happening. And then a tournament like this comes around every 2 years, and then you get a team together, you put a coach in there for 2 months, they come back, and that's it. That's the end of the program. You don't really have a functioning program at that point. And at that point, you have to ask, well, where are we going with this? There's no pathway.
And how are we so far behind everything and everyone else? Like, if you look at, and I look at Cricket Brazil, like,
Yeah.
they've got a functioning program. And
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't be surprised and won't be surprised if they beat us in the next, because they are working at it week by week. They have a program, they have coaching in place, they've got an amazing organization, it looks like there. I think Roberta is her name, if I'm not mistaken, who's taking the lead
Yeah.
there. And there's a real sense of pride from their board about growing the game. And like, when I say growing the game, I'm talking to Cricket Canada, not just about the women's program. There ain't any junior program going on right now. There isn't a pathways program under 23 or anything like that. I beg for it every time. But yeah, we're also seeing a huge change in, once again, we're seeing a huge change in administration at the board level within Cricket Canada. It's totally shifting out of Ontario. Not that Ontario was doing anything anyways, but it's, from what I know, it's a little bit worrisome. At this point, Manali, I'm not really that afraid to talk, right? At this point, it's really worrisome um, and a challenge to the new administration. Like, what are you going to do different? Are you just
Yeah.
going to have your mandated provincial tournament because you get some money from that and just to have it? And then just kind of throw these girls away, really and truly. Like same thing with the provincial program for men's. Like you have this thing, you get guys. So I'm playing for Ontario, and it's so awesome. We've just had this tournament, and then it's done, and it's like, okay, so what's next? And it's like there is no next.
Nothing.
There
There's
is no
nothing.
next.
And I actually, so we ran a recent course in Alberta, and one of the players who did, fairly all right in the nationals last year, he asked me, he's like, so what's the point of the nationals? I did somewhat okay. I didn't hear about anything after that. And I'm like, you know what? I wish I had an answer for you, but I don't. Because you're right, you come to the provincials and you might perform, but there's really nothing else after that. And then we look at our under 19s, and these under 19 players had been training every day, the whole summer, and then they didn't qualify. So some of these players have actually lost sense of purpose because they're like, well, what do
Big
we
time.
do now?
Big time.
Because there's no under 23 program. There are talks of an under 23 program potentially coming in, and I really hope that they do because, well, you remember Shady, like your whole batch with Trevin and I think who else was
Umar Bati,
Umar, exactly.
heaps of
You had
guys.
a good batch at that time. Actually, it was quite a few really good players. But so
Yeah.
you had your under 19s, and some of them made it to the national or to the senior team, and the rest there was nothing for them. So it was either playing TND, and if you're in Ontario, great, you had your S9 or you had your elite back then. But that's about it. And then there's the other flip side of it. And, I'm sorry, I'm talking about men's cricket more than women's cricket. That's
No.
because women's cricket barely has a functioning league. But you look at your men's cricket, and we're saying to our juniors who are under 19s, out of the under 19s, trying to get into the senior side are really nowhere. But these players don't even get an opportunity to play S9, which is technically your highest form of competitive cricket in the province. Why? Because you've got all these 40-year-olds still wanting to hold on to their spots in S9. Well, then at what point do we say to our juniors, who are now transitioning out of juniors and going into seniors, that you know what, you're welcome to come and play here? We're really missing that linking piece. We
Yeah.
cannot have people who are in their 40s heading to their 50s still holding on to spots, in this so-called highest league
Domestic.
or
Yep.
highest division.
Domestic league. Yep. And I think it's on the provinces at this point. Like, you have your national program, right? Like you have the provincial tournament. So Alberta, a lot of pride there. BC, a lot of pride there. Ontario, a lot of pride there. So yeah, sure, okay. Like you can't necessarily expect the national program to now set you up with or set you up for success. But
Yeah.
it's like, what are the provinces doing? Like, there has to be provincial boards that are looking to take that crop and have them continue to train within a again quote unquote high performance program with a coach, and there has to be some consistency there, I think. And again, this is men's and women's, where it should be within province. And you spoke about the S9 situation. Well, because of the fact that we haven't had this for the last 10 to 15 years, there isn't any under 19s really that are going to make any of the Super 9 teams. And
No.
so what we had during our time was an under 23 program. It was a thriving program. And it was a pathway for those who, at that time, it was similar, right? Like, I'm not going to make my S9 team. I'm not going to play at the highest level. But, oh, wait, there's this team that's in the
Yeah.
S9 league that has no mandate of winning. It's just a mandate of development. So who cares if you get killed every game? Because sooner or later you're going to figure it out, or one of the players is going to figure it out, and they're going to improve and they're going to make some headway in terms of progressing into the national squad or the provincial squads at this point. So we're talking about pathway in that regard. But let's move away from that a little bit, and it's another, I guess, controversial topic, but also real. We had an acceptance or an allowance from the ICC for a certain. Um, I'm gonna say like the right term. I think it's transgender athlete, where the ICC permitted that, and we had a player who was able to play for Canada, and then the ICC came back after their AGM and their meetings and sort of canceled that. Now, being obviously a controversial subject, but it is real. I'm keen to know your thoughts on that. From both sides, and what you think about that process. Is it fair? Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, it is. It's a very controversial topic, and I was actually in LA. I was one of the commentators for the tournament where the certain player that Danny, the player that we're discussing, was a part of the Canadian camp. Um, it was tough. It was tough on her because she, and I don't know how many of your viewers are aware of this or not, but when she got selected, she did an interview, and she was picked up by Piers Morgan, and she was ripped apart all over on social media. And when she was in LA, she had to shut down her social media because she was receiving death threats, and it got very, very bad. And it was sad to see that because on on a on a human level,
Human
you know,
level, you don't want to see that to any human.
you don't want to see anyone
Yeah,
get treated like that.
100%.
And I still remember the first day they had a meeting before the tournament was to start the next day. She's just sitting in the lobby and she just looked completely down on herself. I'm like, what's up? What's happening with you? And she's like, I don't know what to do. I didn't expect this sort of backlash. I thought I was pioneering for people like
Yeah.
myself. And then that first day, the first game that she played, there was a reporter, an American reporter who was right beside the commentary tent, and he would come in and check in with us to find out exactly where she'd be fielding, when is she going to be batting, is she going to be bowling. So it's really tough if you have a situation like this and you don't have the proper procedures in place to help someone mentally get through it.
Yeah.
And we didn't because it was so new, and the ICC had allowed it at that point, but I don't even think the ICC expected the amount of backlash that they received. And the first US Canada game that she played, we had some 55,000 viewers, and we don't normally get as many viewers for a women's US Canada game, and I'm assuming that some of it had to do with her playing that game.
I'd say most of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of people. On the flip side of things, we look at science and how science is involved in this, and unfortunately the facts with science are that you could try and control your testosterone levels as much as you want, but it's still not going to be as low as a biological female's testosterone levels are. And unfortunately there is a gap there, and especially if you've gone through puberty, you have developed the bone mass and the muscle mass at that point, and you've developed as a man essentially, and then trying to compare that to a biological female, there are differences. And as much as you can try and say you're going to control your testosterone, you've already developed you've developed the bone mass and the muscle mass. It is a controversial topic. I like to lean towards the science of it because biology has a big say in it. We're designed the way we are, we're born the way we are, and we grow the way we are. There are different situations, like the South African sprinter who is biologically a female, but she just has really high testosterone levels, and that is something that's quite different from a transgender player. For me personally, I have nothing against transgender people and players. They're more than welcome, and that's the good thing about cricket, is we want to try and be as inclusive as possible to everyone who wants to play the sport. But at the same time, I also believe that advocating for female sports rights is also a big part of it. And as a biological female who's grown up playing a lot of sports, I would feel comfortable if a biological female was given a spot over a transgender female, because biologically that is, it is a female team, essentially.
Yep.
But that being said, I also do feel that maybe sports in general, like, not just cricket, there are a lot of other sports going through this right now as well. If they can have maybe an open category or some other category where transgender players can also come in and compete, to keep in mind that we do want to make the sport inclusive for everyone to be able to play it, and you shouldn't be held back for one reason or the other.
Yeah.
While being fair
That
to
is very well said.
Oh, yeah,
That is
very well
said.
said. I was gonna say,
That's
Monali,
very
you
well
handled
said.
that very well. Good job.
Yeah, you've probably been asked that before, eh?
we've had this discussion a few times. Yeah, it is a tough topic, unfortunately. Sorry, one second.
The reporters are calling you right now.
Yeah.
Hey, the reporters.
She's already getting the call. Hey, we know what you
Here's-
said.
No, I mean it is a very tough
Piers
topic, and
Morgan's calling.
at the end of the day, as a person, you don't want to see anyone go through any hardships or any issues. But also as a female athlete or an ex-athlete, you want it to be fair. And more importantly, now that I'm a mom of a young athlete, so my daughter's 5. She just got it into the competitive gymnastics program. For me to advocate for her rights is also part of it. Like, I need to make sure that if I do have my daughter wanting to go and compete in a sport, I want her to have an equal chance and have a fair chance at being able to put forth whatever she can. So
Totally makes sense. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you so
well
much
said.
for
Yeah.
speaking on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well said. Well
Um,
said.
I want to just move into the last little bit, if we still have some of your time here. The master coaching setup, the level 1, the level 2, sort of Cricket Canada diving into that from a level 1 perspective, I believe, and then the ICC sort of opening that up from a level 2 perspective. Talk to us a little bit about that program and sort of what that will do, or what doors that might open for some up and coming coaches.
So the level 1 program is an ICC program. We've what the ICC's done is they've had master educators like ourselves, and they're master educators across all the regions. So we've got like the Americas, Europe, EAP, Africa, Asia. What we do is we then go and we run courses like facilitator courses. So we recently had 2 Canadians in a recent facilitator course in Mexico, in which one of them was successful. The idea is to try and make it a self-sustaining program. What that's meant for Canada, and we haven't had this in a very long time, is we've now been able to actively put into place a pathway for coaches. So we are now delivering level 1 courses all across Canada. We've got about 127 coaches registered. For the practical assessment, we have about 800 people awaiting coaching certification registered on EdApp. That's 800 people who have never been exposed to coaching pathway before or a coaching course. And of the 800, we've certified about 60 of them.
Awesome.
And we've got some more courses lined up. So we're in BC in January. We're running 2 courses in BC back to back. And then we head to Atlantic Canada later in the year, or earlier next year. And then we've got another 2 courses coming up in Ontario, one in January and one in March. So Ontario has been our biggest province in terms of certifications. We've run 2 courses this year. We're running another 2 next year. And there's definitely a demand for it. What we've seen is we've got 800 people registered on EdApp across the country. That says something. That says that there's a demand for this. There are coaches out there, there are people out there who want to get certified and who want to. It's not really so much about that piece of paper either, and it might be to the coaches, they want to say, yes, I'm certified, I've got the certificate. But what it allows us and the ICC to do is it mandates a program across the globe. Mm-hmm. And not just any program, but it's mandating a program that we know is successful and we know that it works. I'm almost glad that, we're talking about this right now, because we have a lot of coaches. We have a lot of coaches who don't have certifications, but have been coaching for years. And some are really good at it, and some are really bad at it. But that's how it is. We've all been exposed to the old school Southeast Asian style of coaching. And what we need to realize, especially in countries like Canada or the US, is it might work for countries like India or Pakistan or Bangladesh, but purely because of the numbers game. They
Mm-hmm.
have so many people in that country
Mm-hmm.
that regardless of what coaching style you're using, you're bound to get a few good ones. Players who are going to go over and above and excel. But when you look at players coming out of South Africa, coming out of Australia, New Zealand, tiny, tiny countries with not nearly as much population, and still coming out and dominating world cricket, that's not just happening because they're able to find people in the numbers game. That's happening because they've got good coaches and good coaching pathways. And we need to understand that in Canada. We are not blessed with the population. So we need to start implementing good coaching to get the numbers of good players.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right, and that's the other thing. So we've relied on immigration all this time.
Mm-hmm.
We've relied on immigration to keep our numbers going and to keep our players at the top level represented. But you don't always want to rely on immigration. At some point, we have to wake up and realize that, we need to start getting our homegrown talent up at the level where we can compete. And that only happens if we've got people doing the work throughout the pathway.
Yeah.
So we're hoping now that we've implemented the level 1 and we recently ran a level 2 clinic. We've not had a level 2 clinic here in almost 10 years, I think the last one was. So that was held in Toronto. We had 14 coaches from all across Canada, tons of more. So once you have your level 1, the application process for the level 2 is that we ask for your cricket CV, and we ask for a copy of your level 1 certificate. We would like you to be coaching for at least 6 months after your level 1 if you are very new to it. That being said, there are a lot of players who've been coaching, or a lot of coaches who've been coaching for years and haven't had the chance to get their level 1 or their level 2. So if we run into situations like that, then we do end up expediting the process for some. And we did do that recently for the level 2. We had a few players who had done their level 1s just a few weeks before the level 2, but we knew that they were at that level and they needed to get into their level 2.
Awesome.
There is,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just to go back
Yeah,
on your
so
point. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Manal.
yeah, we had 14 coaches. What these courses are making us realize is how bad of a need there is for them,
Mm.
and how bad of a need there is for the awareness of what good coaching looks like, because we do see some absolutely shocking stuff. We really
uh,
do.
you
And
can't share those
it makes
stories.
you realize, it makes you ask questions. But then again, that's the when you've not seen or when you've not been exposed to good coaching yourself, that is all you know,
Yeah.
right? So that at some point that has to change.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Shady, we lost you.
Yeah, so sorry, a couple sort of national coaches in there getting their level 2, and I saw some good some camaraderie there. I saw Coach Pubudu doing a little bit of a segment. What would be the next step for them as level 2s? Like, is there, like, I know the answer because I've done it years and years and years ago. What is the next step for them in terms of now going to work as a coach? Um, what do you think is the biggest take back they would get from a level 2 to now go to practical experience and get some hours done?
Yeah, you bring up a really good point. So I was I just mentioned earlier, actually, I think you weren't on the call when I said this, but Pupudu's new requirement, or he wants to try and implement this for all of his national players, is to try and be a level 2 coach at the very minute, at the least, at the lowest. And the reason he wants this is he's noticing that the players think as players, but they're not thinking outside of the box. And he wants them to start thinking of the sport in a more holistic approach. In terms of where do they go after this, we have actually had coaches email us after they do their ones or their twos and ask us, well, where do we go from here? We've got the paperwork. Where do we go and coach? Some of them have their own academies, and they're able to go in and implement some of the more high performance style of coaching that they've learned. And then others, we're really hoping this is where the provincial bodies are going to step up and say, we want you guys to come and work in our provincial level. So Gary Growall from OCA, he's been working with OCA for years. He reached out to Pupudu after his level 2, asking him, is there any way I can get involved in the provincial program? Because I want to work at a high performance level. I've done the academy thing. I don't want to start my own academy. I'm interested in working at a high performance level. Can you please get me involved? So he's like, I'm going to submit my resume and try and see if I can get involved with Ontario. This is where our provincial bodies need to recognize that if we have high performance coaches, we need to try and get them in, and we need to get them involved. It's the only way you're going to utilize their skill set, and it's the only way you're going to help your players. So we might as well start looking at it.
100% well said.
I'd say that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah, might as well use the talent we have available, right?
It's crazy how you actually don't have to reinvent the wheel, eh?
Crazy.
Yeah,
and just to go back on the coaching, a lot of those immigrants that you guys were talking about earlier now are having kids. And it's those first generation Canadians that still have South Asian descent, South Asian backgrounds, are getting into cricket, but they're more Canadianized. So you have to know how to talk to them. You have to know I'm working with an under 19 player that I recently just signed, and he's lost. He does not know what to do anymore because there's no more cricket for him. They didn't make the World Cup.
Yeah.
And his dad is Guyanese. He loves cricket, but he doesn't know if he wants to play cricket. So it's kind of just keeping them good cricketer, top level, going to be good, but they're lost, right? And that coaching, those systems that Shady speaks about all the time, that the listeners are probably tired of listening about, but yeah, it needs to be there.
We had a whole discussion on this, and we discussed this quite lengthily in the level 2 course, is for some reason cricket, especially in our community, is the be-all and end-all. We refuse to expose our kids to other sports. So like you just said, you have this player who had the hopes of, qualifying and going and playing an under-19 World Cup, and now he's lost. And I'm not specifically saying this player might or might not have played other sports, but if we're giving our kids at a young age an exposure to other things, whether it's other sports or other extracurriculars, we give them a sense of purpose after. Whereas we've got parents who want to drop off their kids at an academy, and these kids are 6, 7, 8. They're not even ready to specialize in anything yet. They're kids who want to come out and have fun. And we want to make them next Sachin Tendulkar. I don't know why at that age. But, everyone wants to make them the next big thing. And we start them so young, 4 days a week, 3 days a week. There's no other sport that does that young. I'll give you my kids' example, right? So I've got both of them in soccer. We've got both of them in gymnastics. They both skate. They're going to start skiing in January. But we're exposing them to everything that we can, and we know that they can handle. Because we don't know what they can end up specializing in. And we don't want to... Cricket's the one sport they don't play, but we're not pushing it on them, maybe.
The genetics are there. Come on, what are you doing?
This is what I mean. If you don't expose them to other things, they're never going to know what else there is out there. Even for me, on a personal level, had I not played soccer growing up, when I had my son during COVID, I'd have been completely lost because there was no cricket. I retired as a player. I was not involved with the game at all anymore. I went back to playing recreational soccer in a women's league, and I met other mums my age who used to be competitive players at some point and have kids now and need a sense of purpose. You're not always going to be a competitive player. You need to understand that, but you need to give your players a pathway to understand that and realize that there's more to the game after you're done playing.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Nolly.
Legendary,
Yeah.
legendary stuff, Monali.
Yeah.
Um, I I think I don't really have any more questions. Like, I mean, I do. I could talk to you forever because I haven't really had a chance to connect with you at all in person. Whenever we meet, it's always you doing something and I'm doing something. But hopefully, we can do that going forward. I think what you're doing is absolutely fantastic. I think you're definitely the right one for the job. And I wish you all the best with the master coaching stuff, from a mom's level, from everything. And you know, I would love, and I wouldn't be surprised to see you, hopefully, in the women's setup really, really soon. So from me, thank you very much.
I'm gonna put it into the universe, Mrs. Cricket Canada.
Oh my God. No, thank you. And you know what? You're too kind. I think the right things happen at the right time for me with
For sure.
cricket, and it was. I guess I was just lucky to be where I was at the right time, and I'm glad that I was able to get some of these opportunities. And you know, many people don't know this, but within Cricket Canada, if it wasn't for Engel, I wouldn't have had any of these opportunities. Like I went out and I got my level 1, 2, and 3 on my own, but everything that followed, you need you need someone there. He's like my godfather in cricket,
Hmm.
to be honest. You know,
Yep.
because you need that one person there who's there to support you and to help you grow. And yeah, shout out to him for everything that he's done.
Awesome. Oh.
And I'm glad we did get to catch up because I'm not in Sri Lanka and then in the U.S. Well, I'm yeah, U.S. maybe, but not living the life you are.
Shady lives a very dangerous life.
Hey, that's you know, like you said, like you have to go out and be a go getter. You know,
You do.
I think I'm very similar to you. I've gone out and done all these things sort of on my own, and I'm
Yeah.
sort of reaping a lot of the rewards of the work that I put in. And yeah, obviously not from a Canadian perspective or working within my own country, but it's not for everybody. And I'm really enjoying what I do within sort of franchise cricket and overseas and international stuff. So everybody has their thing, and you know, like I'm always keen and wanting to support Canada, and I'm always a huge fan of the guys. So you know, I actually have a dinner tonight with Saad bin Zafar, the captain. He's here at the U.S. Open as well. So you know, I'm looking forward to catching up with him. And I always love, again, like supporting Cricket Canada or Canada Cricket. Um, and again, like you're definitely a pillar of that. So thank you again, and hopefully we get to meet up soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you
Thank
for
you
your
so
time,
much.
Manali.
Cheers, cheers, Manali. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.